Buenos días, mi gente de Rochester, y bienvenido a su hora informativa. Mi nombre es Ida Pérez y para mí es un verdadero placer poder estar con ustedes en esta mañana. Su hora informativa es un programa que les trae información importante que nos inspira a una mejor calidad de vida para usted y su familia. Cubrimos información sobre los campos de salud, educación, empleo, vivienda y muchos otros temas más que nos afectan como persona y como pueblo. Su hora informativa está aquí todos los sábados de 10 a 11 de la mañana y nos alegramos muchísimo de que estén aquí con nosotros en el día de hoy. Hoy tengo unos invitados muy especial que le voy a pedir a ellos que se presenten, que nos digan su nombre y de dónde son originalmente. I was just saying that I'm really happy with our guests here today, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, to tell us where you're originally from and how long you've been here in Rochester. And I don't know which one of you want to start.
The parents first. Ladies first, the parents first.
Appreciate you. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine Vega. I am born and raised in Rochester, New York. Family's from Puerto Rico, of course. Thank you, Jesus. And I've pretty much been here all my life. I'm a parent-family partner with ROC the Future Alliance, and I'm also the co-chair of the Whole Child Initiative. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. What town from Puerto Rico is your family from?
My dad, Añasco.
Okay.
And my mom, Ponce.
Okay. And what brought them here to Rochester?
Just more opportunities, just the ability to just move around as they please and just, my dad is originally from Puerto Rico. My mom was born and raised in Rochester as well.
So did they meet here?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Here in Rochester?
Yeah, thank goodness, because I was so happy to be part of Rochester is amazing. We're doing amazing things. So to be able to be part of that it's great. I mean, Puerto Rico is doing amazing things too.
Right. Do you know why your dad chose Rochester?
That's a good question. I asked my grandma because she started in New York City, but just family. We had family here, and she ended up leaving back to Puerto Rico, and my dad was getting in a little bit of trouble in Puerto Rico. So at the age of 9, he said they brought him back here, and he's been doing good. He's been on the right track.
Okay, good. Yeah, a lot of people, if they come to New York City, they end up coming to Rochester because it feels more like Puerto Rico. There's more greenery, there's more open space and things. I hear that all the time, and then they come and they love it and they don't go back.
That's right. Look at us. We're here 35, almost 36 years later here.
Nice. Okay, what about you?
All right. Good morning, everybody. So I'm Brian Lewis, and I came to Rochester in 2019.
Okay.
And before that, I was in New York City, too. And I'm originally from Chicago. I grew up in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago.
Okay.
And I was born in Washington, D.C.
Oh, cool. Where's your family originally from?
So my family is from the South, the United States South, on my dad's side. I told a little bit of this story at our State of the Children event. My great-grandfather was actually born into slavery, into Kentucky. And he came from Kentucky to Chicago to become a physician. And so his story of going from being an enslaved person to becoming a physician and then starting a hospital is a lot of the inspiration for why I'm in this work, right? It's this idea that no matter where you start in life, you can not only rise to higher levels, but also give back to your community. So that's a lot of what drives me to do this work.
Yeah. When he was in slavery, where did he originally come from to the United States? Or was his family already here as slaves? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, he was enslaved in Kentucky. And that's sort of where I know that story to begin.
Okay.
And so, some of my family members have tried to, do the ancestry and try to trace some of the lineage. We've discovered that on my dad's side, my grandmother actually has Ghanaian and West African heritage. So we know that that's part of, probably where the transatlantic slave trade that they came from.
Yeah. I like to ask that question, one, to show that we all have something in common, right? We all came here for a reason. My parents came in 1952. My father was the first one out of 8 siblings to come. Then he slowly brought his family. He was smart and brought my mom like 6 months later, so he didn't wait too long for my mom to come. Most men would send money and keep their family there, but he brought her back right away. But, I like to share that, one, because we all have some kind of history like that, right? We all came from somewhere.
Yeah.
And then the other is that a lot of people complain about Rochester, but then other people come and love it, right?
That's
they
right,
love it. They stay here regardless of the weather or whatever. They make Rochester their home. So that's why I like to ask that question. But today we're going to be talking about ROC the Future. And my understanding is that you just recently released a report that you guys have been working on. So first, tell us a little bit about ROC the Future and what that is.
Yeah, so ROC the Future is a community-wide coalition of more than 30 institutional partners and more than 100 individual partners, including family parent partners like Jasmine, that are looking to improve cradle-to-career outcomes for every child in Rochester and make sure that they're successful from birth until they get into a meaningful career. And so we do that by shifting practices, policy, and power to make sure that young people are on the path to upward mobility, and by working across sector. And so it's very important that we say that education is not only the task of educators and people that work in the classroom, it's also the task of parents, of nonprofit leaders, of the business sector, politicians in our community. We all have to work together to make sure we're supporting our children's growth.
Yeah. And what is your role exactly, and how did that come about?
So as Brian just stated, it takes a village, and I'm part of the village, thankfully. I'm a parent family partner, and it all started one day when I was at work in the barbershop. Someone asked me to take a survey, and I'm like, for what? My voice doesn't matter. Like, they don't listen to me. She was like, well, I'm going to bring you to a space where it actually does matter. And it's been history since then. This is my 4th year with ROC the Future Alliance.
Wow.
Yes, and before ROC the Future Alliance, I did not know how to properly advocate for my children. I didn't have the knowledge it took to be able to speak up and make sense, But while being at these different tables with these 30 plus partners, by traveling with the Strive Together network, I've developed my knowledge beyond what I could have expected. I'm able to not only advocate for my own children, but help other families advocate for their children. And I feel like that's the most important part. Like, yes, I want to help myself, but I want to make sure my community is thriving because they are our future. We need to make sure that we are set up to thrive. And if we don't take care of every child, then what are we really doing? We're doing an injustice. And focusing on Black and brown children, because we all know that there's an inequity that takes place in these systems. So it's very important that we uplift our Black and brown children so that they have the same opportunity, because representation matters.
Of course. I've sat around a lot of tables, where parents were not part of those tables, but yet there was all these people making decisions for these parents, And I remember when ROC the Future started, and we started the PCAN, which was the parent engagement part of it. Still we didn't have parent representation there. And, it was through that table that we realized, no, we need to have parents here, helping us decide what it is that we want. And one of the tasks that I had that, I kind of picked up during that time was attendance, because we wanted to make sure we knew that if kids weren't in school, they're not going to learn, that type of thing. And because our program at Ibero was all, from infants to 4 and 5 years old, we knew that these kids could not get there on their own, right? Somebody had to bring them, and we didn't provide transportation. And so when we started asking parents in our parent orientation, like, what keeps you from bringing your child to school? Some parents were very honest and said, laziness, I don't want to get up in the morning, or I don't want to fight with my kid in the morning, to get them up to come out in the cold and whatever. And so, we realized that we really needed parents around the table. And I think that's where, this whole concept of having parents at the table may have started. I don't know. But, it really made us start to think, we can't do anything for these parents without the parents' input. Because when we were sharing information with parents, we discovered a lot. We learned a lot about, what parents are thinking, what were some of their challenges, right? Because it's easy to say, well, the parent needs to get the kid to school, but we don't know what that parent was going through. We don't know, whether, the worst thing is for you to get up in the morning and your car doesn't turn on and you don't know what's going on and you don't have the money to fix it, or you don't have a, AAA to call this figure, so it really changed the way that, at least in the early childhood community, because that's where I was in, started thinking about parents and how do we bring them on board to kind of help us, make those decisions. Brian, tell us a little bit about the report and what were some of the things that you guys were collecting and researching and studying to generate this report.
Yeah, Eden, thanks for that background, because that seed that was planted and that you helped to sow has evolved and grown, because now this is our 13th annual report card. And so for 13 years, we've been doing this work of assessing. And when you talk about asking a powerful question, a lot of times we don't think of that as assessment, but it is, right? Asking a parent for data, a qualitative data that you can then act on.
Yeah.
And so we're still doing that work. And so ROC the Future has sort of evolved that initial work that you laid out into what we call ROC the Future Parent and Family Cafes. And so those are also featured in this report card. But let me take a step back.
Yeah.
The report card at a high level is an assessment of how our children are doing, from everything from kindergarten readiness all the way through to employment. And so our national partners, Strive Together, have done the research, and they put out a white paper years ago that said, if you're really committed to ensuring that a young person is on the path to upward mobility, it's critical that they're achieving at certain stages in their life. And so kindergarten readiness is one of those earliest stages. Here in Rochester, in part because of the work you and others have done, we've actually backed that up from before kindergarten readiness. We say it actually starts with prenatal. It actually starts with birth, right? So we back it up locally a little bit more than that. But our national partners say kindergarten readiness, then it goes on to early grade reading, third grade reading scores, 8th grade math, middle grade math, high school graduation, post-secondary enrollment, post-secondary completion, employment, and then on to, gainful career. So this is a snapshot, not of how individual children are doing. I'm a parent too. So, of course, we think about like our children's performance, an individual report card, but not individual report card for individual children. How is the system doing?
Yeah.
How are we collectively doing as a city, as a society, of supporting our children along these different areas? And to be honest with you, and this probably won't surprise you or anyone who's sort of worked in this space for quite some time, there are some great bright spots, and there are some ways that we are powerfully upholding and supporting our children, and we should be proud of ourselves as a community. But there are also some real serious challenges. And there are places where, when you look at things like middle grade math proficiency and scores in our community, we are severely behind where we need to be in order for our children to be on the path to success. So what this report card does is assess and provide a clear portrait of where we are as a city, and then hopefully provide some examples of action so that we don't get stuck where we are and we keep moving towards this vision that we have of every child being successful from cradle to career.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about early child, like all those different sections, right? Because you have early child, and you have elementary, and then you have junior high, and then you have high school. What were some of the findings in those different sections? Yeah,
happy to talk about that. So when it comes to kindergarten readiness, which is making sure that a child is entering kindergarten academically, socially, emotionally ready to be successful. And again, I'll take this one personally because I have a child that is 3 years old. So my child is getting ready and being prepared in these ways. But we're actually 45% across the entire city of Rochester's children that are entering kindergarten. And when you disaggregate the data, it's actually a little bit lower for our Latina girls, for our Black boys, and some key indicator groups. And of course, it is higher, unfortunately, for white males. So we have some disparities here, right, that we already begin in kindergarten.
Yeah.
When it comes to third grade reading, we're currently at about 19% of third graders reading at grade level in the city of Rochester. That's charter and public school students. That is up. That's increased from where we were just a few years ago when the pandemic hit and really kind of, decimated early grade reading scores. But again, none of us are satisfied with a 19% reading rate. We need to get as high as 80%, we believe. But we have some early indicator goals of around 40%. The math scores that I talked about, those are the ones that I think really strike you and hit you over the head. Only about 4%, a little less than 4%. 4% of eighth graders, that's public and charter school, eighth graders in the city of Rochester are doing math at grade level. And so that's very concerning, right?
Yeah,
and so, and again, you're seeing this decline, right, going into eighth grade. And these are the things that we don't want to see. We want to see a reversal of that trend. We have to do what works as a city to reverse that and to get children going up and increasing rather than going down.
Tell us a little more, because I've mentioned this before, and I always feel that people truly don't understand the importance of children reading at a third grade level when they're in third grade. Like if you could break it down a little bit, because, I've had these conversations a lot of time with parents, and they don't realize how important that is, right? And what things can they be doing to help that? So if you can kind of break that down a little bit, and I didn't know so much about the 8th grade math, so now I'm going to be focused on that, but I have been focused a while on the 3rd grade reading level because, that I've known for a while, but I didn't know about the 8th grade math.
Yeah, we can't understate how important it is for a child to be literate and reading at grade level by 3rd grade, because literacy is really that foundational skill. It feeds other abilities. And so part of the reason why the 8th grade math scores are so low is because many of our children are struggling to comprehend math word problems. And so again, you can't go on to, math proficiency. You can't go on to high school graduation if you don't have those critical literacy skills in place. And so as a community, some of the things we've done, because we don't focus only on the problem, we focus on what's working, is we've been able to mobilize, and you talked about laying the seed to this work, initiatives like Ready Rosie that have promoted literacy at a very young age. We've mobilized our parents through PCAN and through our cross-sector partners to support initiatives like the Imagination Library and say, how important is it that parents read to their children at home and that they're receiving books at home? That's what the Imagination Library does. They mail books to the home and with instructions to say, this is not only a book that you can read, but how you should read aloud to your child and the importance of, verbalizing everything to your children at a very, very young age. So again, as a parent, like equipped with this information and knowing this, now I have a 3-year-old at home, and I actually have a 3-month-old that I was just born. Okay. So one thing that I do all the time as a parent when I'm not executive directing is talk to my child. I narrate his entire day, right? I'm changing your diaper. I'm doing this. Good morning. Good morning, son. And so beginning that at the earliest stages as a parent is so critical because that sets them up for success.
It's I teach a CDA class, and that's one of the things that I say to my students. It's a child development associates class at ROC, and I say, when you're with a baby, you're the narrator.
That's
like
right.
You're reporting everything that I'm going to pick you up now. I'm going to go change your diaper, and I'm going to bring the cream down, and I'm going to wipe you down. So you're constantly talking to them about what you're doing, because that's how you help them develop language.
Totally. And it feels strange because it's like they're not talking back.
Yes. Well, and
but you have to do it.
Right. And that's the thing about it, that it's not something that we're used to doing, but it's so important to do. And it's always so interesting because the students say, I never thought of that. That's going to feel weird. It's like, it is going to feel weird. And I said, and don't talk to them in a baby tone type.
Right.
You talk to them like you normally would. Yeah. And I said, and use words that, big words like we say, don't deprive them and just say little things, speak to them like you're talking to anybody else. And, it's always interesting because they say, that seems weird, but I'm going to try it, type of thing. Let's go back to preschool because, I'm not surprised to hear, that, what was it, 40 something?
45, yeah.
45. I always feel that the preschool programs do fairly well in getting kids ready, but obviously 45 is still, it's not 50, it's not 60, 70, 80 that we would like to see. I know that there's different types of programming in the summer, like Summer Leap and some other things that can help kids stay on track and be ready for kindergarten. What are some of the things that parents of preschoolers can be doing to help raise that number?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so this is actually ROC the Future's current wildly important goal is to make sure that we have more than 1,000 additional children that weren't preschool ready or kindergarten ready by the end of the school year. And so one of the best, most critical things that any parent can do to get their child kindergarten ready is to enroll them in pre-K. And so we have many parents in our community and we've done some of this analysis, and we found out, and Jasmine's been one of the leaders in this, parents either don't know that pre-K is free, that we have high quality free pre-K in our community. And often it's as accessible as like going up the street, right? And a lot of times parents just don't have the information. Either that, or they don't realize that your child does not have to be potty trained to be in pre-K. Because again, pre-K
and any program that's telling them that, they're doing it wrong.
They're doing it wrong, right? It's so true. Or they don't realize that, their child it's important for them to be in pre-K. They're just like, oh, my child's on, 3 or 4. They don't need to be in any kind of school. No, it's really important that you get them exposed and starting early with that kind of enrollment and stuff. Jasmine is one of the parent family partners that does that peer-to-peer outreach. Because it's one thing if, the executive director of any nonprofit says it, but when they hear it from a peer, it's more
from a trusted
powerful.
messenger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What have been those experiences for you, Jasmine, bringing this information to parents? Like what that been for you?
To see parents light up when they hear those myth busters broken, like the potty training rumor. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Why does a child have to be potty trained to learn?
Yeah.
Like you said, you start teaching a baby when they are born. You speak life into the baby when they are here. So why would they have to be potty trained to come into a classroom? When parents hear that, they're like, oh, wow, that's what's been stopping me this whole time.
Yeah.
Well, here you go. Now you have a reason to come.
Yeah.
Another myth that is really huge and it's really sad because a lot of our children are on the spectrum is that there's no one to help the children who are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
But to be real, there's a lot more children in these days who are on the spectrum than before.
Yeah.
And so that's saying that all of those children are helpable, are not they can't be educated.
They can't learn.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Some people back away from challenges. And that is not what we are here to do as a community. Our job as a community is to teach all children, every child. So when we break that myth as well, they're like, wait, but I don't trust. No, listen, trust is something that you gain over time. So give this program a chance.
Yeah.
My children, all three of my children went through the pre-K program. And if it wasn't for the pre-K program, I'd be one disheveled and stressed out mother because if it was all on my back to teach my child everything and to provide and to make sure we have the roof over our head and to make sure I have dinner on the table, come on, I'd be worn thin. But we have all these programs like UPK, EPK who help us thrive, help us as a family, not just as an individual, as a family. We all need it. Parents need it so that they can get a break. They can breathe. They can go to work.
Or
Children
go to
need
school
it.
themselves.
Exactly, because a lot of us put our lives on hold so that we can put our children at the forefront, which is amazing. But we still need something to push forward through. We need something to look forward to. I'll save that part for later because I know you asking at the end. But we have to always focus on the future, not just now. Now is now, okay? Now it's going to be gone tomorrow. But the future is something that awaits us every single day. And we need to make sure every single day that we have the ability to, we are taking advantage of these programs, these resources, because then we have people who take a magic wand and try to defund these programs because they're like, hey, they're not working. Or hey, they're not utilizing them. No, we are. And if it takes for a parent like me to go door to door and tell these people, these parents to their face, like, listen, whatever you heard before was not the truth. I'm here to tell you that my child was in a diaper. 3 years old, my daughter started YMCA. She was still potty training. I let her do it on her own time. That's another thing as parents. We try to rush our children through processes that they're not ready for. Because we get tired of buying diapers. But listen,
it becomes too expensive.
And it does. It does. But your child isn't on part of your budget. You can't put your child in the budget and say, oh, I'm going to take out the diapers, so now you got to be potty trained. You can't do that. So you have to be patient with your child and allow for others to step in and help you help yourself. So,
I actually had to create an entire workshop on potty training, one to help new staff that may have been coming on because, at Ibeto, we've had staff that have been there for, almost 30 years and they got potty training down packed. Like they know how to do that, right? Without stressing the kid, without stressing the mother, whatever. But then we had some new staff that just didn't understand that. And so, I did it where I could do it for parents and I could do it for staff, and there's some very fundamental questions that you need to ask. Can he pull down and pull up his pants? Is he not afraid of the toilet, right? Those type of things. And it's real cute because it talks about kids and their personality. Is your child like like a dog, like a puppy, you know, where they're moving all over the place, but they're also eager to please. Or is your child an owl, you know, that kind of watches everything first and be like, I don't know if I want to do it. You know, so there's all these different personalities that you can match up with your child, and then you'll know how to handle, you know, that particular child. But there's some very basic questions that you should be asking, you know, before you start potty training. Because you're right, a lot of times the child is not ready, but the parent is. And you can't impose that on the child. But, you know, going back to pre-K, you know, to hear, you know, sometimes programs saying, well, we don't have all our seats filled, you know, when we know the kids are out there, right? But like you said, you know, so parents that do have a child in a preschool program or experience a preschool program, it's important for them to tell, you know, 5 other parents about it, exactly. You know, and that's how you spread the word, right? Because, you know, it doesn't matter how much we play it on the radio or maybe a bulletin board or they get, you know, a newsletter or whatever, you know, when other people are talking about the programs, that's when other parents might become interested.
That's right.
You know, and the interesting thing is that pre-K is not only for the city kids, you know, a lot of suburban areas have also adopted a pre-K program.
That's right.
Which is also free to parents. So, you know, there's really no reason other than, you know, how you're going to get your child there,
That's right.
you know, to the program and back home. You know, there's no other reason why you can't. And we've known, you know, for a long time now that pre-K programs are very high quality. You know, even, you know, the staff are very well trained. You know, they follow a very good curriculum. They have really good ways of assessing children to know exactly where they are and how to plan for those kids. You know, it just saddens me to know that parents are not taking advantage of that. You know, one of the other things that concerns me with preschool, you know, after COVID, you know, those kids that did not get to go to a program because of COVID, you know, and how much they have to catch up. You know, and there, like you said, there's so many other resources. You know, one of the things that we would use was Attendance Matter, you know, because it would give us information. And one of the things that it says is that if a child misses the first month of school, it's an indication that most likely they'll miss more days throughout the year. And so we would always focus on that first month of school and quickly call those parents and say, hey, what's going on? You know, why aren't you bringing your child to school, type of thing? Because, you know, and we know that the more they miss, the more they're not going to learn and the more behind they're going to be. So things of that nature that are so important. You know, talk to us a little bit about maybe in more detail about the 8th grade math, because that I didn't know of, and I want to learn, and I want other people to learn about that as well.
Yeah, so 8th grade math is a really critical indicator because it is a predictor of high school graduation success, and I think a lot of people don't know that. And so, you know, when you see 8th grade math levels that are not as high as you want them to be in a city like Rochester, then you can sort of predict that our high school graduation rates are also going to either fall or stay stagnant. I will say, and we talked about this a little bit at our event, that 4% number is not the full picture because it does not include the advanced students that are taking a math regent early. And that's about almost 50% of students that are more advanced, and they're so advanced that they can actually take that math regent and get math credit before they even get to high school.
Oh, wow.
And so it's sort of a tale of 2 students, right? You have your students that are really struggling, and again, we don't want to see any students at 4%, anybody, but that 4% body does not include these other students that are a little bit more advanced. And so, you know, our goal as an alliance is to, you know, meet the needs of all of our students, and like Jasmine said, especially our Black and Brown students. And so some of the things that we've been looking at to get math proficiency up there's this really powerful program called AMPACT, which is high dosage tutoring. And so this program has been successful all over the country. Right now in New York, it was only in Poughkeepsie until about last year, but we worked with our partners nationally and in Poughkeepsie to bring this program to Rochester. And AMPACT includes an early learning core, which starts in pre-K and creates numeracy and literacy foundations really early so that children are getting those exposure early. Because you can't just start in 8th grade if you see, you know, math grade that low, right? You got to put those critical foundations in earlier, but it goes all the way up to 8th grade. So it goes all the way from pre-K into 8. And again, they're taking students that are behind in terms of their math and doing what they call tier 2 and tier 3 intervention supports in the school building. And so our partners at RCSD have embraced this program. Ibero has embraced this program. And we're excited that, and our charter partners have shown some interest in high impact tutoring as well. So we're excited that we have a lot of things that work in this community, and we're also working to layer in additional interventions like Impact to make sure that we have a plan to getting more of our students to be math proficient. Yeah.
I want to go back to the third grade reading level, because I know that, they say they got to be able to read at third grade level when they're in third grade, right? Yeah. And so those two things go together. And I know that, like you said, at that point, there are going to be reading math problems, right? So they have to be able to read at third grade level to be able to answer those questions. Because if they're not, then it's difficult. I also know that third grade is probably the grade where kids become more conscious of who they are, what they look like, what others say about them. They may start noticing girls or boys or whatever, right? And so it's a very difficult age, right? It's an age of a lot of transition for those young folks, which makes it even harder, right? Because then if you can't read at third grade level, and you're also noticing all these things, that's where kids' self-esteem start going down, and things of that nature. And then eventually, they just give up, right? I don't want to go to school. I hate school, that kind of thing. And so, to me, like, I'm assuming that part of the work that you're doing is, trying to catch those things early on, for sure, before they get to 8th grade, because then at 8th grade, it's, to me, it's even harder for a student, right? Yeah. Because they are more conscious of who they are, what they look like. They worry more about what other people say. They probably have some peer pressure. Yeah. All those different things and emotions that go with that. Yeah. And so, again, how can parents help if they notice these things with their students, with their child? What can they do? How can they advocate for their child to make sure that they stay on track?
It's so critical that, Harvard research has shown that 80% of a student's time is outside the home. And so that means that parents know their children the best in those trends, oftentimes better than their teachers, right? Like you said, whether they're getting distracted or they got a crush or, whatever kind of thing is going on at home. So the caregivers need to pay attention to their children, especially at that age and even before that age, and make sure that they're aligning the right supports and meeting their needs. We talked a little bit about, reading to your children from a really young age, and that's critical. But it's also really important that parents have the peer-to-peer networks and peer-to-peer supports to talk about the struggles and the successes of their children. And so, PCAN is providing that. Jasmine has not only a good working relationship with her other PCAN leaders and Whole Child, which is our early childhood outcome team leaders, but personal relationship too, right? I see them like trading notes, talking about what's going on with their children, talking about therapy, talking about therapeutic supports that they can align and make sure that they're getting in the home and outside the home. The other initiative that Jasmine's been leading, and maybe she wants to talk a little bit about this, because we've uncovered that homelessness and housing insecurity is a huge issue here in Rochester. And we know that part of the challenge, we don't often think about this, but when a child who is supposed to be in education and in school is homeless, that is extremely disrupting to their ability to, focus on their education. And so ROC the Future has mobilized with our MAPI and enterprise community partners and a few others locally to address this issue of homelessness and housing insecurity. Because we know that is also a huge barrier. And a reason why a lot of our children are not reading at grade level, doing math at grade level.
I remember one of the board members from the city school district give a report to city council, and that was very alarming to hear the number of homeless families within the district. Like, I was shocked. Like, I remember after the meeting, because I'm the legislative aide for Miguel Melendez, who is the president of the city council, and we had a long conversation about, and he knows how passionate I am about attendance, right? Because he's known I've always been like that with attendance. And we talked about it. I was like, wow, Miguel, that really concerns me. Like, it's huge, right? So Jasmine, tell us a little bit about that, because, that's a hard thing to take on,
Absolutely.
when people are homeless, and we know that there's already a disparity on apartments and housing, and things that can support families when they are homeless. So tell us what your experience have been with that.
So personally, I've experienced homelessness in my life, and I've seen how it affected my children. I've seen how it affected me. A family cannot focus on educational outcomes when I don't even know where I'm going to lay my head at night. I don't know how I can make this comfortable for my children to not even know. We paint a picture for our children that is like rainbows and unicorns and butterflies. And my children in that time, I did not want them to know we were homeless. I was trying to make it seem like, oh, we're just waiting for our new house. But no, we don't have a home right now. We're staying at grandma's because thank God I have my mom to be able to stay with her. But not all families are fortunate enough to have that.
Which, let's explain, let's define homeless.
Yes.
Because when people think about homeless, they're going to think about somebody sleeping outside, under a tent or under a tree, or, but homeless can be, when you're staying with someone else, right?
That's right.
Whether they're family or not.
That's right.
If that's not really your home, if you're not the boss of that house, that's not your home. So, tell us about that.
So homelessness could look like you sleeping on your sister's couch and the kids are sleeping in their cousin's bed with them. It might look fun. It might be fun to them for the moment. It doesn't mean you're in a shelter. But some families are. Some families don't have that luxury of saying, hey, Ma, can I come crash on your couch till my house is ready in 4 months? Ma, can I come stay, or sister or brother, can we come stay at your house? They say after a while, it's cute at first, but after a while, it's fun for the kids at first. After a while, things start to stink.
Exactly.
And
it's time for y'all to
go.
go.
It's like I'm having to provide for more than what my household accommodates. I'm having to provide food for more than what my house accommodates. And if, as a parent, if I'm bringing food in for my children, I have to make sure that my nieces and my nephews are eating as well.
Exactly.
I have to make sure my mother and my stepdad are eating as well. I can't just be selfish and be like, oh, well, I'm homeless and I'm sleeping on your couch, so I have to make sure my kids eat. No, they are doing you a favor by allowing you to stay here and not having you stay in a homeless shelter. But another thing I really wanted to touch on for the math was that the math nowadays is so hard because parents learned a whole different way.
Don't ask me to help my grandson with his homework because I can't.
They're doing grouping.
I don't know what that means.
They're doing all this this stuff that we didn't learn. We didn't learn like that.
Yeah, we didn't.
But that's why programs like PLTI, we are partners with PLTI, are so fundamental. I have a mentee. I'm a mentor to Cam, and she actually is developing a program to tutor parents in math. So I feel like once this is off the ground and she's able to have that out there for the parents, we shall see those numbers increase. We shall see that these children are doing better because once the family knows how to help the child, we can excel. The child we can't help the child if they're learning a certain way and we have the same answer, but we're wrong. Because that's not how I learned.
Exactly.
My teacher didn't teach me like that. My teacher taught me like this.
And they want you to show how they got there. So
even
if you show them a different way, if he does that in school, the teacher's going to say, no, it's not.
And then your kid comes home like, Mom, you
got me in trouble with my teacher.
It's like, and now that interrupts the trust relationship that was built between child and mother, child and father. So I feel like it's very important that we can learn with our children, or at least have the teachers send home packets on how we did this. This is how we do math now. Involve the families.
Or have an orientation day where you teach them how to do math.
Teach us, because you have these expectations for my child, but I've never seen this before in my life.
We are lucky that he has an older sister, and so she knows. So she takes over with helping him with the one. She has more patience than my daughter and her husband, and one she knows what language he's talking, right? Because I look at it, I'm like,
I'm sorry, baby.
I don't know what this means.
I can't do
I don't know what this means.
It's important to have those programs. So shout out to Cam at PLTI for developing a program that can like just be awesome for all of the community.
Yeah.
We need it.
Yeah.
Like, it's important.
Let's talk a little bit about that. If a parent is out there listening and say, wow, I can benefit from being part of this, it'll definitely help my child. How can they be involved? And is it, do they have to, can it be any parent that's interested? Like, how does that work?
So, I mean, there's so many different programs and partners. ROC the Future Alliance, we have over 30 partners, as Brian mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So PLTI has programs where they're going to have a new cohort coming up soon because this cohort is going to be graduating. Shout out to cohort 13. I'm part of cohort 12. We're the change makers. Parents like us go into the community and we know what we need. We're most of us are parents. Some of them aren't, but most of us are parents that complete that program. We know what we lack. We know where we needed help, and we fill in that gap. So,
and you're not afraid to ask for that help.
That's right.
No, why should we be afraid? Because if we're afraid, how can we teach our children to be resilient? How can we teach our children to go out there and strive and make sure that they reach out for the answers? If I don't know the answer, excuse me.
Yeah, I need help.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you help me? And that's how we can continue to increase our knowledge, increase our children's knowledge, and make them more confident in who they are.
Yeah.
And we also have Pecan public meetings.
Yes.
So you can go on the ROC the Future website and you can send us an inquiry, and we'll make sure you get plugged into one of those Pecan public meetings. So you can join the ROC the Future Pecan, which stands for Parent Engagement Collaborative Action Network. And then, of course, you also have the VIPs. The Children's Agenda is such a critical partner. And we haven't really talked as much about our strong partnership with TCA and all the policy work that ROC the Future has been really advancing. But, we did talk about this a little bit at our event, Ida. And when you talk about these things that are really important for individual parents and families like childcare, New York State is moving toward universal childcare, and that's very exciting. And so ROC the Future is playing a role with other partners like TCA and Ibero and others who have advocated for this for a long time to say now is the time to really scale this and make sure that, I love how you said it earlier, it's not just a city thing. We want to make sure every parent in the suburbs, in the county, even parents that live all the way in Wayne County or in rural areas across our state have access to childcare, because that's how we get to greater kindergarten readiness across the entire state of New York.
Yeah, that's exactly. Right. One of the things that parents often don't remember is that they are their child's first teacher.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
And always will be, right? They know their child best. They are their child's first teacher. And, I remember growing up, and my parents were wonderful parents. Like, I can't say that they were not. But my father would say, if you're doing fine in school, then I don't need to be involved in anything, right? And fortunate for him, we were all good students. Like, we were respectful. We never got in trouble in school. We never got suspended or anything like that, right? We wouldn't fight. We didn't do any of those things. But, as I, became a parent and then, started going to school and learning more about early childhood, I realized, well, that was not the best practice, right? And he would say, learning is for school. And little does he know that half of the knowledge that I use today, I learned between him and my mom.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I learned a lot in school, but, that wisdom and, being thoughtful and being kind and, valuing relationships and things of that nature, I really learned from my parents. I didn't learn that from school. And so parents, parents need to understand that they are their child's first teacher and they are their child's best advocate. And especially here, like in the city, just my relationship with the city school district, I can go in there as a director or just a community advocate or whatever and say things. But when you take parents, like, that has a whole nother level of powerness, right?
That's right, yeah.
So parents really need to understand how powerful they are and not to be afraid, right? To talk to people in the school. Yes. And I know that's part of what some of you guys do, to help parents understand. And I know that for a long time, Ibero did a workshop with parents to teach them, how to be advocates for their children, who to go to when you go to the school and you want certain things, who to talk to.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Not to be afraid of a principal or not to be afraid of an administrator.
That's right.
And I obviously go with respect, right? You got to go with
Absolutely.
respect and, regulate your emotions and things of that nature. But, you are your child's first and most important teacher. And we can't, we parents can't forget that.
That's so true.
And I think at some point parents have.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's the school problem. No, that's, the school needs to do that. No, the school's not going to do any of that unless you're there,
Okay.
Yeah.
knocking on their door,
Yeah.
That's right.
type of thing. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how do you help parents, do become that powerful and truly advocate for their children?
Well, so yeah, you want to talk about that, and then I'll talk about the other side of that, because I think part of it too is preparing systems and engaging systems.
Absolutely.
So I'll talk a little bit about the
Yeah.
system engagement side, but you want to talk about what Whole Child and Pecan is doing to engage parents. Yeah.
Absolutely. So with Whole Child and Pecan, us sitting at the table with those system partners, the people who are creating these policies, we are able to gain the knowledge that we need to address these certain situations.
Yeah.
Without the knowledge, we have irate behavior. I've been there. I didn't know what to say, so I screamed, slammed things. Oh, whatever. You don't know what you're talking about. I know my child. You don't know my child.
Yeah.
But it was just lack of knowledge. Being able to be at those tables and learn how to speak up and what to say is important as a parent, because we don't know how to advocate what we don't know. So you don't know what you don't know, as Miss Tina Kearney says, one of our peer partners. How can I address something I don't know about?
Right, exactly.
I need to sit at this table. I need to know how to navigate these systems. Sometimes we need to destroy the system altogether and recreate
Oh, yeah,
it.
absolutely.
But it takes for us to sit at that table and know how to properly do that. You're not going to do that by slamming and cursing people out. And no, presence is power, whether it's in your child's classroom, at your child's school, whether they're doing good or bad. You want that. You want that presence. Like how you said your parents, if you're doing well, we don't got to be there. That's not a fact.
Yeah.
Our children look out in the crowd and they expect to see our faces.
Yeah.
And they want our parents to be something that they're proud of. They want us to be like, oh, that's my mom. My mom's not coming here to embarrass me. My mom's not coming here to yell and scream, because my mom knows what she's talking about.
Right.
My dad knows what he's talking about. My caregiver knows what they're talking about. And because of programs like ROC the Future Alliance and the PCAM Network, we are equipped with the knowledge that we need to step in those rooms confidently, knock on that door and demand what our child is there for. These schools are there to serve our children. Our children aren't serving the schools.
Right.
So when it comes to my child, you will do as you are supposed to make sure this child is on the track for upward mobility.
Yeah.
That's
Not
right.
just our child, but our family.
Right.
And if it's not happening, I know how to demand it in a respectful and very cordial way, but get those answers that we're looking for.
I want to share, before you go, Brian, I want to share a real quick anecdote with my granddaughter when she was in high school. There was a situation, and we ended up calling a meeting with the superintendent of the school. And it was in the suburban school. And it was interesting because, my granddaughter from a very young age, we taught her self-regulation. She has a very high social emotional intelligence, like all these things that I wasn't able to do with my girls, I was able to do with my granddaughter. So there was a situation at the school, and we ended up calling a meeting with the superintendent. And it was funny because we were all there, her mother, myself, and my granddaughter. And so the superintendent is looking at us like, okay, what's the issue? What do you guys want to talk about? And so my daughter said, no, my daughter's going to lead this meeting.
Yes.
And she did.
I love
And
it.
she did.
Yeah.
And I felt so proud of her afterwards, because it's like, wow, all that we've poured into her, right? She knows now how to do for herself.
That's right. Yeah.
And I remember the superintendent being very impressed with her, because she, and she kept it her intonation was stayed the same.
Mhm.
She did not show any, you know what I mean? Even her
Yes.
body language. I mean, everything.
Yes.
I love that.
It's
Yeah.
important.
So and I say that to say that when you're constantly doing this for your child, eventually they're going to be able to do it for
That's
themselves.
right.
That's
And
right.
that's
Yes.
exactly what you want,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You want a child to
Absolutely.
be able to advocate for themselves because you're not
Mhm.
going to be there with them forever.
Yes.
And so, it's interesting that you say that because that exactly happened, with my, because with my daughter, I had to regulate my daughter. So she would never go to a meeting without me because I didn't know if I was going to have to get
Sure.
bail money or what. You know what I mean?
I
But with
get it,
my
yes.
granddaughter, it's the complete opposite.
Mhm.
And I was so proud of her because she spoke. She spoke eloquently. She was able to express herself. She did it in, very calm and so the superintendent was super impressed with her
I love it.
Amazing.
with that meeting. But it was good because they said, "Wow, everything that we've been modeling for her, she was able to do on her own."
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
And,
Tell us
I mean,
about the other side.
Well, that's also what we're trying to do at ROC the Future Alliance too. So we have a youth leadership coalition, and a lot of the youth
Cool.
leaders
Yeah.
are children of the parents, but not all of them. Some of them are just youth that are, in peer schools or in the community. But it's the idea that, there's no prouder feeling when a young person stands up for themselves. Like you said, a parent is the greatest advocate almost always, and then the next best, and then as they grow into it, the youth themselves is sometimes even a greater advocate. But just to step back and at a 30,000 foot level, kind of like what our feeder looks like, and then how we do this work and how we impact systems. So Jasmine mentioned, she came to us through peer to peer, and so she did not come from like a formal parent engagement network or partner. She just came to us because she had a trusted partner that said, "Hey, come be in this space." And so we do get parents in the community that way. And so we do outreach, via other parents in barbershops, in salons, in churches, in faith groups, just to get that access. So that's one way parents can come into the Alliance. She also mentioned PLTI. So we have an informal feeder from PLTI. A lot of ROC the Future parents have completed PLTI and are sort of doing ROC the Future as another step to their parent education.
Can you
and
tell us
advocate
what
journey.
that stands for?
The Parent Leadership Training Institute.
Okay.
Yes, and there's a national PLTI and there's a local PLTI. So we work with both, but especially the local PLTI to help bring more parents in. And then I also talked a little bit about the VIPs and the Children's Agenda. There are so many parents that are doing advocacy work. Many times they do PLTI and then they might go be a VIP and then they might come to ROC the Future after doing PLTI and being a VIP. Or they might do ROC the Future for a while and then go be in VIPs. They might do PLTI.
Yeah.
So it really is an iterative process, and we work really closely with all of our parents to make sure that they're getting the kind of skills that are needed. Once they're in ROC the Future, there's a few ways that we skill up our parents. And so one is we have something called CORE, and that stands for the Community Onboarding and Reboarding Experience. And so parents and youth are leading core sessions to look at what we call mental models and to think about how mental models often inform how we treat our children within systems. We also have a training institute from Strive Together that parents can do courses to learn more about how to change systems. And so when we go from pilot to policy, we're actually not just having, informing things like universal childcare. We're taking parents like Jasmine and we're getting our national partners at Strive Together to learn more about how they can be more community informed and how they can have more parents lead.
Yeah.
So Jasmine has traveled to Atlanta and Salt Lake City and all over this country, teaching other partners in other cities, this is what parent advocacy looks like. This is what leadership looks like. And so to go from that local perspective to that national impact, that's really what ROC the Future does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, something to be very proud of, right?
Yes.
And we can serve as models to other places.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you feel that it's important that we share today?
Yeah. I think there was a question on the that I wanted to address. My favorite part about the state of our children. One of my favorite stories.
Oh, your success story. Yeah. Tell us about that.
So one of our fellow parents, Sharika Ross, man, she's amazing. She actually joined me in co-facilitating one of our workshops in Atlanta this past year, and her daughter was featured in the report card, and it was of course, about her success story in the UPK EPK program. She started at 3 years old. She wasn't in the position where she was as confident as she is now. Her confidence grew, her social emotional skills grew. So when we talk about UPK EPK, we talk about the importance of it. And we have stories so personal, like ones from our family, our parent family partners. It just makes me so excited to know that it's working. So if you have any doubt about this program, maybe you had a childhood trauma, maybe you were part of this program and it wasn't what you thought might have been what it should have been. Don't let that navigate how you teach your children and align your children with their purpose and what is for them. Because these programs change every single day. So give it a shot, give it a chance. And just like therapy, sometimes the first therapist doesn't work for you, right?
Right, exactly.
Sometimes you got to try again. We have many, many organizations like Ibero. We have Generations, which her daughter is part of. Her name is Janisa. She's amazing. She's such a intelligent and bright child. She brightens up the room. And it just makes me so excited to know that we are part of it. Our work that we do is part of why these children are succeeding. Some of these kids, like we have over 2,700 kids that were enrolled in UPK and EPK this year. And that's because foot on the ground work from parents.
That's right.
From ROC the Future Alliance. We're literally out there and we're, like we said, we're breaking those myths. And if you also wanted to take a look at this report card and hear Janice's story, you can go on rocthefuture.org. It's ROC and you can take a look at that report card yourself. Just because you missed the state of our children doesn't mean you can't be involved. Right.
Exactly.
Looking at those stories is very important so that you can see, like, hey, my child can be the next child in this report card.
And speaking of that too, I love that, Jasmine. You know, we're rewriting a different history. We're rewriting a new story in Rochester. So one of the things that I want to lift up from that State of Our Children event is that we had the first Latina deputy mayor, the highest serving executive in Tulsa government, Crystal Reyes, travel from Tulsa to Rochester to be a part of this event. And Deputy Mayor Reyes serves under Monroe Nichols, who is the first Black mayor of Tulsa. And Tulsa, most people in the United States should know, and if you don't know, you got to do some history, is the place where Black Wall Street existed in the early 1920s. Is one of the cradles of Black wealth in this country, but it was also the site of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, where, you know, white power structures decimated Black wealth because of fear. And so, you know, Monroe Nichols was not able to join us for this event, but he sent his deputy mayor, Crystal Reyes, like I said, highest serving Latina. And she came here to connect what is going on in Tulsa to what's happening in Rochester. And Rochester, you know, we have a similar history. We talk a little bit about things like Fight Village and Clarissa Street. And we told some of our own personal stories about how we get to Rochester and how we fight for equity here. So we're part of this story that says that we are not just the numbers that we've talked about, this 4% eighth grade math, 18% literacy. We are a city that is powerful. We're a city with pride in our past. We have, cultural legacies here in Rochester that are rich for brown and Black people. And ROC the Future is rewriting that story to make sure that our children are succeeding and we're successful, but also that we recognize our power and that we own our power and we continue to move forward into that with powerful partners like the city. The mayor was there, and of course, our partners in city council and all others. So, by working together and collaborating and saying this is an entire effort. It's not just one nonprofit. We are a city that is rewriting our history. And we, especially brown and Black people in the city, are telling a different story about our children and about our future.
I all my life has been in early childhood. I worked for Action for a Better Community Head Start for 17 years. And then I was 20 years at Ibero with the Early Childhood Center. And so my entire life has been in early childhood. And, I've always try to help people understand the importance, right, of what kids are learning, how they learn, how you can enhance that, right, and help them. And so I'm hoping that anyone that is listening that has a young person in their lives, that they are there for that person, whether you're the parent or not, because you don't have to be the parent, right? You could be the, anyone that cares,
auntie, uncle, grandma, grandpa,
anybody, godmother, whoever. That loves children and want to see them succeed. Because I haven't met a parent yet, my brother Lewis, who ran Summer Leap and Horizon for a while, he would always say, he would ask parents, what are your hopes and dreams for your child? And there was never a parent that said, something negative, right? They always wanted the best for their child. They wanted them to succeed, to go to school, to, to have a career, to be happy, whatever. And so I think every parent desires that, right, for their children. And I think that this is an opportunity, to either learn about this report and how they can assist, right, with all the things that you guys are doing, showing up for their children, advocating for their children is one way to help them be successful.
That's right.
The other thing I wanted to say about EPK and UPK programs, again, I ran for 20 years at Ibero, and it's interesting because when I first went to Ibero, we had one classroom and it was half filled. And I remember the first thing, learning this from Head Start was, okay, we need a recruitment plan. Right. Because we need to fill up this classroom. What do you mean you only have 8 kids? Right, oh, no. And we had a wonderful, wonderful teacher, but, nobody was really working on recruitment. And we went from one classroom to now having, I think it's 5 classrooms or 6 classrooms, So we helped develop that because I knew, from the very beginning that this was one way of helping young children.
That's right. Yeah.
And most kids do very, very well.
Yes.
We do want to increase that number, from 45 to higher. But again, for parents to take advantage of those programs, to try it, if you go to a center and you don't really like it, there's many others that you can choose from. So don't let that stop you, right?
That's right.
And I think that, we've done as a community, including myself, because I teach a CDA class, we've really done a good job in preparing people to work with children, to understand children, to also advocate for children and families.
Yeah.
And so, I can't say enough about the work that you guys are doing and helping bring these things forward, right? And helping parents understand this, and also being a true partner with parents.
That's right.
Yes.
Because to me, that's really important. Like,
so
to me,
important.
that's the most important thing that you could be doing, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And then obviously, the Children's Agenda, who helps collect all this data and, and help create different policies and things of that nature. So, I'm just proud of the work that you guys are doing, and I'm glad that you're here with us today. And again, if you can give the website again, or how people, parents and other folks can reach you guys, that would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Ida. And thank you for lifting up ABC and Head Start, too, because that's another critical partner. We didn't even talk about them, but they're really critical to supporting this push. And if you can enroll your child in Head Start, UPK, EPK, any of those early childhood programs,
any of those programs,
it helps set them up for success. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. Yeah. And the website for ROC the Future, again, is rocthefuture.org. rocthefuture.org.
Cool. So I like to end the show by asking if there's a phrase or a saying that you grew up with that still resonates with you today. And I'm hoping that you both have one.
Yes.
Who wants to go first?
You go first. Yeah.
Okay. Before I say mine, I just want to quote Ashley from Impact Tulsa when she said, "Nothing about us without us."
Yes.
Always. We live by that at ROC the Future Alliance, but to hear Impact Tulsa speak about it was just like, yes, okay, we're doing something right, because they got great results over there. So I want to shout you out, Ashley. You're amazing. Thank you for coming, and thank you for that quote. I live by it. But I won't really speak about from my childhood, but from my early teen years, like high school, I seen a poster that quoted, "Begin with the end in mind." And when I think about that, it fits everything, especially the work at ROC the Future Alliance. We have a goal by 2030 to increase our numbers from the 45% to that 80%. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we could be higher than the 80%. But we always set a marker. We have to have a marker. But that 80% is ours. You understand? We are striving for that. We will not be satisfied with anything.
You're not going to give up until you get there.
Absolutely not give up. So parents, begin with the end in mind. Pre-K is the first graduation your child will have. But in order to see your child graduate from high school, you got to make sure that they're on track, right? So begin with the end in mind. And no, high school graduation is not the end, because we have college graduations, but begin with the end in mind.
Perfect.
I love that one. And mine is from the late Reverend Jesse Jackson, who just passed away. I am somebody. I am somebody. So I was really fortunate to grow up in Chicago, and my grandfather was very involved in the Rainbow Coalition and work, he would go down to push headquarters. We grew up not far from there. And he would come home and he would tell us, or he would take us with him. He would take his grandchildren. He would drive us around the city and he would say, this is where Fred Hampton was learned how to organize. And this is where Jesse Jackson first decided to run for president. And he said, and you are somebody. And he said, Jesse, never let anybody tell you that you are not somebody. Yeah. He said, and I think the full phrase is, I may be Black, I may be poor, I may be uneducated, but I am somebody. And so no one can take away your dignity and your power.
Yes. Awesome.
That's good.
Well, thank you both for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. Gracias a todos por acompañarnos en esta mañana. Lo esperamos el próximo sábado de 10 a 11 de la mañana en Poder 97.1 FM, la única estación radial latina con dueños y operados por latinos, por la comunidad, para la comunidad. Esto ha sido su hora informativa, trayendo la información importante para una mejor calidad de vida. Que pasen una linda semana. Hasta la próxima, mi gente.
Thank you.